Ethan Cole had always believed that most assignments given to him by the Interstellar Coalition were routine. Years of service had taught him how to predict risks, calculate probabilities, and act quickly when danger arrived. Some assignments were dull, like escorting minor officials across peaceful sectors or coordinating logistics on supply stations orbiting distant planets. This new mission sounded similar: deliver support and oversee a ceremonial event on Valira, one of the galaxy's most disciplined and technologically advanced empires. On paper, it was ordinary. The reality, as he would soon learn, was anything but. Valira stretched endlessly under its pale sun, its landscapes a mix of jagged silver cliffs and sprawling neon cities. The palace itself was a marvel of engineering. Towers of reflective metal spiraled toward the sky, connected by translucent walkways that shimmered like liquid glass. The air around the palace hummed faintly with energy shields, their subtle force fields protecting the grounds from external threats. Ethan arrived in a small shuttle, docking at a secondary platform, his eyes scanning the palace's intricate network of defenses. Alien sentries observed him from the edge of his vision, their elongated forms perfectly still, their gazes sharp and calculating. Valerians were not known for trust, especially toward humans, and humans in return had learned to expect little kindness when navigating the politics of an empire as proud as this one. Ethan disembarked, his steps measured. The shuttle's ramp hissed underfoot, and he carried only a small case of tools and data pads, enough to manage minor emergencies. He had no illusions about what awaited him. This was a high-profile mission, but he had rehearsed countless contingencies. Nothing, however, had prepared him for the first real test. Within hours of his arrival, a minor system error set the palace on partial lockdown. Corridors sealed, energy doors hummed, and security protocols activated automatically. It was a simple mistake, one that could happen anywhere, but in the eyes of the palace engineers, it was unusual enough to demand immediate attention. Ethan moved quickly, checking access points and control terminals. As he navigated the narrow corridors, his attention caught movement at the far end of the hall. A figure emerged from a side passage. It was tall, graceful, with precise movements that spoke of both training and authority. Ethan's instincts sharpened instantly. This was no random staff member. Her presence carried weight, even without ceremonial robes or insignia. She wore practical attire, something that allowed mobility rather than decoration. Her hair, dark and straight, framed a face that was sharp and intelligent, with eyes that studied every detail, every pattern of light and shadow. She was young but carried herself with a quiet confidence that reminded Ethan of battlefield leaders he had once admired. "I assume you are checking the security grid," she said, her voice calm but firm. There was no hesitation, no expectation that Ethan would step aside. She spoke with authority, yet without arrogance. "I am Princess Liara, and I do not intend to remain behind my guards." Ethan paused, surprised. A royal heir moving through a partially sealed palace alone? It was highly irregular. Most nobles would have remained behind multiple layers of protection, hidden from any threat. And yet here she was, observing the same system malfunctions he was investigating, analyzing them with clear logic. "I'm Ethan Cole," he replied, giving her the most professional nod he could manage. "Coalition security. The system errors seem minor, but I'm tracing the source." He gestured toward the panels and conduits running along the corridor. "May I suggest staying in a safe zone until engineers arrive?" Liara shook her head. "I cannot leave. If this is a test, I need to understand it. And if it is sabotage, waiting could be fatal." Her tone made it clear she expected him to assist, not argue. Ethan had faced many leaders, many diplomats, and many civilians. He had never seen one insist on direct engagement in such a high-risk situation. The instincts honed over years of service told him one truth: she was unusually capable. Together, they began inspecting the terminals. Ethan demonstrated a few human techniques, manual overrides, tracing hidden circuits, bypassing automatic reroutes. Liara observed closely, asking precise questions, suggesting alternate hypotheses based on patterns she noticed in the energy flow. Within minutes, it became apparent that the error was not accidental. Some internal mechanism had been tampered with subtly in a way that mimicked system errors. It was deliberate. Someone wanted to test the palace defenses, or worse, expose weaknesses to outsiders. "Look here," Liara said, pointing to a section of the network display. These energy loops do not match the standard protocols. Whoever did this wanted to create a bottleneck here and here. If the attackers knew this, they could isolate the upper levels from the lower. She spoke in tactical terms, almost like a soldier mapping out enemy maneuvers. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. The princess was not only intelligent, she was thinking strategically, beyond mere theory. She understood the practical consequences of an attack before it happened. As they moved deeper into the palace, they noticed more anomalies. Minor doors opened when they shouldn't have, some alarms failed to trigger. It was subtle but consistent. Ethan realized that whoever planned this had insider knowledge. They knew the palace as intimately as its administrators did. And the implications were clear. This was a test of both the princess and the human presence. Before they could investigate further, a soft alarm echoed through the halls. It was not the usual alert. This one was coded differently, almost personalized. Ethan's fingers instinctively hovered over his emergency communicator. Liara's hand rested lightly on his arm, steadying him, signaling that she understood what he intended. Together, they approached the source, a junction near the core of the palace's energy grid. There they discovered a small maintenance hatch partially open. Inside, faint scratches and scorch marks indicated someone had recently tampered with the wiring. It was a sign of both skill and urgency. Liara knelt, examining the marks. These are deliberate. Whoever did this knew what to leave behind and what to conceal. They wanted us to find it, but not before it was too late. Ethan nodded, thinking quickly. If this was indeed sabotage, it was meant to create fear and distrust. The palace guards might suspect a human intruder, the royal family might question coalition involvement, and the political ramifications could be severe. His mind raced, balancing the immediate risk to the princess against the long-term consequences of exposure. Liara stood, her posture firm. We cannot rely on the guards alone. I need someone I can trust to move quickly, and right now that's you. Her eyes held a mixture of challenge and assurance. Ethan, despite years of training and experience, felt a surge of respect. This was no ordinary mission. The princess was entrusting him not only with her safety, but also with the integrity of the empire itself. They moved through the palace tunnels, following the energy conduits that led toward the main control chamber. Along the way, Liara's instincts were astonishingly precise. She predicted which doors would fail next, where alarms might be overridden, and even where maintenance bots would attempt to intervene. She moved with quiet confidence, a sharp contrast to Ethan's calculated urgency. Together, they formed a small but formidable team, blending human improvisation with Valyrian intuition. Reaching the control chamber, they found the main interface compromised. The sabotage was sophisticated, designed to mask itself within the palace's own security architecture. Ethan knelt at the console, analyzing the code. Liara observed, her eyes scanning the room for physical clues. There's a pattern here, she said, pointing to a sequence of energy fluctuations. It repeats every 36 cycles. Whoever set this up knew exactly how to time it to avoid immediate detection. Ethan adjusted the console, bypassing the automated protections. Sweat beaded on his forehead, not from physical exertion but from concentration. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down. One wrong move and they could trigger a full lockdown, trapping themselves, or worse, giving intruders a chance to strike. Finally, he identified the source. A subroutine buried deep in the system was sending false signals to the security network, creating artificial errors that masked the intrusion points. Ethan isolated and neutralized it, carefully restoring the system to its default state. Liara watched closely, her respect evident in the way she nodded once, decisively. As the lights in the corridors normalized, Ethan exhaled. They had stopped the immediate threat, but he knew this was only the beginning. Whoever orchestrated the sabotage had tested their abilities, and next time the stakes could be much higher. Liara turned to him, her expression unreadable for a moment, then softened slightly. You understand the danger we face, she said. But you also understand how we survive it. Ethan nodded, realizing the truth in her words. Humanity had survived countless crises not because of technology alone, but because of ingenuity, loyalty, and the willingness to act decisively when others hesitated. In that moment, he understood why the coalition valued human operatives so highly. As they walked back through the now secure corridors, Ethan glanced at the princess. Liara had shown him something remarkable. Courage combined with intellect, a force of nature capable of reshaping not only her empire but the future of human-Valyrian relations. Ethan knew that his assignment, which had seemed ordinary at first, had just begun, and it would test him in ways he could never have imagined. By the time they reached the outer halls, the palace guards were returning to their posts, confused by the unusual collaboration between a human operative and the princess herself. Ethan and Liara exchanged a brief look, one that acknowledged both the success of their mission and the uncertainty ahead. The palace, the empire, and perhaps even the galaxy would be watching them. And for the first time, Ethan felt that he was part of something far greater than any routine assignment he had ever undertaken. The day ended quietly, but in the back of his mind, Ethan could not shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Queen's daughter had entered his life unexpectedly, and with her, the weight of extraordinary responsibility. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy through resilience and courage, and now Ethan would see that truth tested in ways both unimaginable and extraordinary. The palace had returned to a fragile calm, but Ethan knew it was only temporary. The sabotage they had discovered was sophisticated, and the timing was deliberate. Whoever had orchestrated it had not just wanted to test the palace defenses. They wanted to send a message, and that message was dangerous. As Ethan walked beside Princess Liara through the wide corridors, he could see that the palace guards were confused. They had been trained to respond to emergencies, but this situation had unfolded in ways that defied their routines. A human operative working closely with the princess had moved faster than anyone expected. It challenged their assumptions and made them hesitant, even uncertain. Liara spoke quietly, her voice steady. "This is not over. Whoever tried this will strike again. And next time it may not be just a test." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had faced ambushes, rogue factions, and hostile species in his past missions, but this felt different. The threat came from within the palace itself, from someone who understood its inner workings intimately. They returned to the main control chamber to examine the systems more closely. Ethan began reviewing the logs, tracing the intrusions and analyzing every anomaly. Liara leaned over his shoulder, pointing to a series of encrypted signals that had been disguised as routine maintenance updates. "Look here," she said. "These are not random. They follow a pattern that aligns with the palace guard rotations. Someone calculated exactly when the corridors would be most vulnerable." Ethan studied the sequence, impressed by her observation. "You're right," he admitted. "This wasn't a careless attempt. They expected us to follow the normal security paths, but they miscalculated our response speed." Liara's expression hardened. "Then they underestimated the princess and the human by their side." Ethan smiled faintly, though his mind was already moving forward. They needed a plan. The conspirators could strike again at any moment, and they could not rely solely on the palace security forces. The standard protocols were too slow, too predictable. They needed to act with human improvisation, combined with the strategic insight Liara had already demonstrated. The first step was to secure the princess. While she had insisted on participating in the investigation, it was clear that remaining in exposed areas would be dangerous. Ethan suggested a hidden passage that ran beneath the palace, originally intended for maintenance crews. It was narrow, low-ceilinged, and labyrinthine, but it offered mobility and secrecy. As they moved through the tunnels, the air was cool and smelled faintly of ozone. Small lights embedded in the walls provided illumination, casting long shadows that flickered across the curved surfaces. Ethan led the way, using portable sensors to detect motion and identify weak points in the palace defenses that the conspirators might exploit. Liara followed closely, her steps precise and quiet. She observed everything: the patterns of the lights, the sound of the energy conduits, even the subtle vibrations of the floor that indicated structural weaknesses. Ethan could see that she was learning quickly, absorbing human methods of tactical thinking while applying her own instincts. Suddenly, a soft hum echoed through the tunnel. Ethan froze, signaling Liara to do the same. The hum grew louder, accompanied by a low vibration beneath their feet. Ethan tapped his communicator, checking the motion sensors. "We're not alone," he whispered. Liara's eyes narrowed. "They're coming," she said simply, as if stating an undeniable fact. Her voice carried neither fear nor hesitation, only determination. Ethan felt a surge of respect. In all his years of training and experience, he had rarely seen anyone face imminent danger with such calm. A small panel slid open along the wall and two figures emerged, moving quickly but silently. Ethan recognized their uniforms immediately, Palace Strike units, elite soldiers assigned to internal security. But something was wrong. Their posture was aggressive, and their eyes avoided meeting his. These were not loyal defenders, they were part of the conspiracy. Ethan reacted instinctively. He pushed Liara behind a support pillar, keeping her low while he prepared to engage the intruders. But instead of a direct attack, he used human improvisation. He triggered a hidden maintenance hatch above the tunnel, sending a cascade of wiring panels down to block their path. The attackers stumbled, giving him the chance to maneuver. Liara acted in perfect synchronization. She moved swiftly, using her knowledge of the tunnel layout to guide Ethan. Together, they forced the conspirators into a bottleneck where their movements were restricted. Ethan restrained the first attacker with a quick, precise move, neutralizing him without lethal force. The second paused, clearly surprised by their coordination and speed. "You underestimate us," Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. Liara added, "We know these corridors better than anyone. You cannot predict our moves." The second attacker hesitated, then retreated into a side passage. Ethan and Liara did not pursue immediately. They knew it was a trap. Instead, they continued moving through the tunnels, always alert, always calculating the next possible threat. As they emerged into a secondary maintenance chamber, Liara turned to Ethan. "We need to access the palace's central security hub. If we can control it, we can monitor every corridor and anticipate their next move." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. But we'll need to bypass several layers of automated defenses. The conspirators will likely have tampered with them as well." The chamber contained a series of panels, each linked to different sectors of the palace. Ethan quickly assessed the situation, identifying the compromised nodes. Liara watched intently, occasionally pointing out patterns in the energy readings that Ethan might have missed. Together, they worked efficiently, combining human improvisation with her sharp insight. After several tense minutes, they gained partial control of the system. Surveillance feeds flickered to life, showing the palace corridors, stairwells, and courtyards. They could see movement, small groups of conspirators attempting to regroup and continue their plan. Ethan motioned for Liara to stay behind the console. "I'll intercept them," he said. "You maintain observation and guide me. We cannot afford mistakes." Liara agreed, her confidence unwavering. "I trust you," she said. Using the surveillance feeds, Ethan navigated through the palace, anticipating the conspirators' movements. He set up temporary blockades, closed doors remotely, and used human intuition to predict where they would appear next. Each step was calculated, but improvisation was key. The conspirators were skilled, but they relied too heavily on predictability and familiarity with the palace. Ethan and Liara were unpredictable. They adapted in real time. At one point, Ethan encountered a small group attempting to force open a corridor. He engaged them with non-lethal force, disarming and restraining them quickly. He could hear Liara's voice through his communicator, guiding him to the next hotspot. They moved like a single unit, human and princess, combining intelligence and action seamlessly. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Every encounter tested their coordination, reflexes, and strategy. Ethan realized that this mission was no longer about a ceremonial escort. It had become a trial, proving humanity's value and adaptability in a galaxy that often underestimated them. Finally, they cornered the leader of the conspiracy, a high-ranking commander who had expected loyalty from the palace strike units. He stood in the energy core chamber, flanked by a few remaining loyalists. His eyes narrowed as he saw Ethan and Liara enter. "You," he said, disbelief in his voice. "A human and the princess, you cannot defeat us." Ethan's expression was calm. "Underestimating humans has been a mistake throughout history," he said. Liara stepped forward, her voice carrying authority and clarity. "Your plans are exposed. You will answer to the Queen for this betrayal." The commander lunged, attempting to activate an emergency override that would seal the chamber and trap them inside. Ethan reacted instantly, knocking the device aside. Liara moved in, using her presence and command to disorient the commander's remaining followers. Within moments, the leader was subdued, restrained by palace security personnel who had returned after receiving updated instructions from Liara and Ethan. The immediate threat was over. The conspirators were arrested, their plan foiled. The palace, once again, was secure. But Ethan and Liara knew this was only a temporary victory. Political tensions remained, and the factions that had orchestrated the attack were only weakened, not eliminated. The galaxy watched closely, and Valira's alliance with humanity would now be scrutinized more than ever. In the quiet aftermath, Ethan and Liara returned to the control chamber. They reviewed the palace's systems, ensuring no further tampering remained. Liara's respect for Ethan was evident. She had witnessed not only his skill but his judgment, his ability to remain calm under pressure, and his instinct to protect life over pursuing power. "You were remarkable today," she said softly. "I have never seen anyone move so quickly, think so clearly, and care so deeply at the same time." Ethan shrugged modestly. "I just did what humans have always done. We survive, we adapt, we protect those who cannot protect themselves." Liara smiled faintly, understanding the depth of his words. "Perhaps that is why humanity has lasted so long in this galaxy. Perhaps that is why the Queen values your kind." The day ended with the palace lights dimming to their nightly glow. Ethan and Liara, despite exhaustion, felt a sense of accomplishment. They had faced internal betrayal, outmaneuvered skilled adversaries, and ensured the safety of the princess and the empire. Yet both knew the larger challenge was only beginning. Political intrigue, galactic scrutiny, and future threats would test them further. Ethan realized for the first time that this assignment, which had seemed ordinary, had become extraordinary. And the princess, far from being a passive figurehead, had proven herself a partner in strategy and action. Together, they had not only defended Valira, but demonstrated the potential of human ingenuity combined with alien intelligence. As they looked out over the palace, the city lights reflecting in the distant spires, Ethan felt a surge of determination. Humanity would continue to rise, adapt, and face challenges head-on, and he would not face them alone. Liara's presence beside him symbolized a new chapter, an alliance forged in trust, courage, and shared purpose. The galaxy had taken notice. And humanity, through its simple yet powerful combination of loyalty, intelligence, and bravery, had already begun to leave its mark. The palace was quiet after the failed coup, yet the tension that lingered was heavier than the silence. Ethan Cole and Princess Liara stood in the control chamber, observing the palace network's full restoration. The conspirators had been captured and removed from the palace, but their actions had already set whispers across the empire. Some noble factions were uneasy, some loyalists were shaken, and some outsiders were watching closely. Every movement, every alliance, and every decision could shift the balance of power. Liara looked at Ethan, her eyes reflecting both determination and concern. "The Queen will convene the council soon. We must prepare for what comes next." Ethan nodded. He had expected that the political fallout would be the hardest part. Physical danger was tangible, immediate, and something he knew how to respond to. Politics, however, was an unpredictable battlefield. In the council, every word, every hesitation, and every perceived allegiance could carry consequences far beyond personal survival. As they walked toward the central hall, Ethan noticed the contrast between the palace before the attack and now. Guards moved more carefully, their eyes alert. Advisors whispered in hushed tones, casting glances at the princess. Technicians checked and rechecked every system. Valira had faced threats before, but never had a human operative played such a central role in protecting the royal family. That fact alone was unprecedented. The central hall was enormous, with soaring ceilings that reflected the glow of energy shields outside the windows. Delegates from across the Empire and from the Interstellar Coalition filled the space, their varied forms a testament to the galaxy's diversity. Ethan felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. In this room, the future of human-Valerian relations could be shaped or shattered. The Queen entered, her presence commanding and serene. She was taller than many humans, with silver hair cascading over her shoulders, eyes sharp and calculating. The room fell silent as she moved to the raised dais. Even the most skeptical delegates straightened, acknowledging her authority. She glanced at Ethan briefly, her gaze measuring, thoughtful, then shifted to Liara. Liara stepped forward, her posture straight and confident. She had rehearsed these words in her mind countless times since the incident, but she spoke from truth rather than preparation. "Today," she began, "our palace was threatened by those who sought to create fear, confusion, and division. Their plan was precise, their knowledge deep, and their intent dangerous. But we did not fail. We acted swiftly, decisively, and together." She gestured slightly toward Ethan. "A human operative, Lieutenant Ethan Cole of the Interstellar Coalition, acted not for glory, not for recognition, but to protect this palace, this empire, and its people. He reminded us that strength comes not only from technology or strategy, but from loyalty, adaptability, and courage." Murmurs spread through the hall. Delegates exchanged surprised glances. Some were impressed, others cautious. A few whispered among themselves, questioning the reliance on a human in such a pivotal role. Ethan remained still, standing near Liara, observing the reactions. The Queen's voice cut through the room. "I have observed Lieutenant Cole since his arrival. Today he demonstrated qualities that many in this galaxy undervalue. Humanity's endurance is not merely survival, it is foresight, creativity, and the instinct to protect others. We have seen proof of this." She paused, letting her words settle over the assembly. "Let it be known that we do not fear humans, nor do we underestimate them. Today they have shown their value as allies. But this is only a beginning. Those who seek to manipulate fear will continue to test us, to test the bonds between our peoples. And we must be ready." Ethan felt a mix of relief and weight settle over him. Relief because the immediate threat had been acknowledged and justice had been recognized. The weight came from the understanding that the galaxy had taken notice. Allies and enemies alike would now evaluate humans differently, and expectations, challenges, and scrutiny would rise. A senior Valyrian diplomat stood, stepping forward cautiously. "Your Highness," he said, "while we acknowledge the bravery of Lieutenant Cole, is it wise to rely so heavily on outsiders in matters of our internal security? Could this not set a precedent that destabilizes our empire?" Liara's gaze shifted to the delegate. She responded with calm authority. "It is not reliance nor precedent but acknowledgement of ability. Lieutenant Cole acted because he understood the value of life, the importance of duty, and the consequences of inaction. It is precisely these qualities that allow an alliance between humans and Valyrians to succeed. We act not because we cannot defend ourselves, but because cooperation strengthens all of us." Ethan remained silent, letting the princess speak. Her words resonated. They were not simply praise, they were insight into humanity's unique strength. In this hall, where power was measured in political maneuvering, strategic influence, and technological supremacy, loyalty, courage, and adaptability had proven as vital as any weapon or energy shield. After more deliberation and discussion, the Council concluded that humans would be formally recognized as trusted allies in matters of interstellar security and diplomacy, though their role would remain carefully monitored. It was a compromise, an acknowledgement of capability without granting unchecked influence. Ethan accepted it quietly, understanding the subtlety. True alliances required mutual respect and balance. Later, in private, the Queen summoned Ethan and Liara to her personal chambers. The room was adorned with artifacts of Valyra's history, gilded sculptures, holographic records of past leaders, and intricate energy panels tracing the Empire's growth. The Queen's expression was unreadable as she motioned for them to sit. "You have done well, Lieutenant Cole," she began, her tone measured. "I must admit, I was uncertain when this assignment was given. I wanted to observe humans to see if their principles and instincts matched their reputation. You have exceeded expectations. You have proven that humanity is capable of foresight, loyalty, and courage in situations that many might find overwhelming." Ethan inclined his head respectfully. "Thank you, Your Highness. I did what I have trained to do, what humans have always done. We act, we adapt, and we protect. It is not glory that motivates us, it is responsibility." The Queen nodded, studying him. "Your understanding is accurate, and yet you must be aware. Your actions have drawn attention, not just from those within Valyra, but from powers across the galaxy. Some will respect it, others may challenge it. You have demonstrated value, but with that value comes risk." Liara interjected gently, "Mother, I trust him. I have seen his judgment, his courage, and his loyalty. He is not merely a human soldier, he is a partner in protecting the future of this empire." The Queen's eyes softened slightly. You have the princess's trust. That is significant. And perhaps in this galaxy it is what matters most. Outside the palace, the sun was setting over Valira, casting long shadows across the towers and streets. Ethan and Liara stood together on a balcony, observing the city below. The aftermath of the day's events left a sense of calm, but both understood the undercurrent of tension. Allies and enemies alike would be watching, waiting to see how humans and Valyrians worked together. Liara turned to Ethan. You could leave now, return to your assignments with the Coalition. But I wonder, will you? Ethan considered her question. He had opportunities elsewhere, missions that promised routine, safety, and familiarity. Yet he realized that his purpose here had grown beyond a single assignment. This was not just about Valyra or the Coalition, it was about the future of multiple worlds. I will stay, he said finally. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because I believe in what we are building together. The galaxy is changing, and if we can work together now, perhaps we can face what comes next with strength. Liara smiled, a mixture of relief and admiration. Then we begin a new chapter, she said, one where humans and Valyrians can truly stand together, not as master and ally, but as equals, partners, and defenders of what is right. Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose settle within him. He had arrived on Valyra expecting a routine assignment. Instead, he had faced sabotage, internal betrayal, and political upheaval. He had acted decisively, demonstrated humanity's unique strengths, and forged a bond of trust with a member of the royal family. It was a reminder that humanity's survival, influence, and impact in the galaxy were not built on weapons alone, but on intelligence, courage, and loyalty. As night fell, the city's lights shimmered like stars reflected on the surface of the towers. Ethan and Liara watched in silence, aware that the galaxy held many more challenges, conflicts, and tests. They had succeeded today, but tomorrow could bring even greater trials. Yet Ethan felt ready. Humanity had always faced adversity and adapted. With allies like Liara, he understood that even the most complex threats could be met with strategy, courage, and partnership. Together, they would protect Valyra, strengthen the alliance between worlds, and demonstrate that the strength of humans extended beyond any battlefield. The palace gates closed quietly behind them, but in the distance, the galaxy continued to spin, full of unknown dangers and opportunities. Ethan knew that his journey was far from over. And as he looked at the princess, standing beside him with resolve, he understood something fundamental. In this vast universe, humanity was not alone. And with trust, courage, and collaboration, they could meet the galaxy's challenges and shape a future worth defending. For the first time in his career, Ethan Cole realized that his ordinary assignment had transformed into a defining mission. One day, when history was written, humans and Valyrians would remember this day, not as a moment of danger, but as the day a partnership began. The day courage, loyalty, and intelligence triumphed over fear and deception. The day the galaxy began to understand the true strength of humanity. And as he stood on that balcony, watching the first stars of evening appear above the towers of Valyra, Ethan felt the steady certainty that this was only the beginning of a story much larger than himself. A story where humans could rise to meet every challenge, inspire allies, and leave a mark on the stars that no one would soon forget.